Rusty Shovel Wrecking Crew! Wrecking a day early. I mean, we're always live and releasing right away, but day early because our regular recording day, Ben and what was supposed to be Chris is going to the Rutgers Washington football game at Rutgers. How's the pinky, Chris?
Oh man, it's okay. But it does it like this like my hand is still like the size of a softball. You know what I mean? And so I'm still like but I've learned to do a lot of things with my left hand. Like I feel like this if there's a silver lining here, it's that like I've developed like a slight ambidextrous
What percentage of
technical
listeners do
quality.
you think are interpreting that as that you masturbate with your other hand now?
85
Yeah,
easy.
it's got to be 85
85. I kind of like meant it that way, a little bit. Like I
You're like,
understood
that's
that.
what I meant. That's they're interpreting it correctly.
Yeah, but like I'm using my mouse with my left hand, like stuff like that. But it's a pain in the butt, that's for sure. But at least I got the giant cast off. I'm just waiting for like the collection of bills from this whole ordeal to hit my hit my mailbox. I mean, I'm expecting at least to be what out of pocket for the deductible plus then some. I'm sure. So that's my big thing right now. It's like, okay, when are the bills going to hit? Like, how much does it cost in the United States if you have a small fracture in your hand to get basic treatment? So let's I think it's going to be the cost of like a decent used car.
Jeez.
Not like a total fucking jalopy, but not like a nice car either. But I feel like I'll be able to spend the same amount of money and get like a decent, reliable used car for how much it costs
No,
to
well, how
fix
many
this.
appointments have you had?
Like four.
All right, so four doctor's visits, $300 a pop. But you have insurance, so what? It's $1,000 deductible, and then
It's like 1800.
oh yeah, then you're screwed. Okay,
Yeah,
if
and
you
then
got
they
a
just
higher
cover a
deductible, yeah.
portion. Like I think my out-of-pocket max for a year is like 10 grand or like something insane.
But usually
So
once you hit the deductible, it's like $50 a visit, right, or something semi-reasonable.
usually it's hard though because my deductible is so high, like I rarely hit it, but this is definitely going to be one of those years.
You could always call. You could just argue, but it's a time suck. But you can call. I mean, maybe do it while you're on a different conference call anyway. Just call up and be like, "Hey, man, can you guys do anything on the bill? My insurance isn't doing much." Give them a sob story. Be like, "I'd hate for this to sit in collections for 5 years." Give
Yeah,
them all sorts of negotiate it right away.
I
that's a
like
good
that
idea.
Ben's doing the thing that women don't like, where you just like kind of reached out maybe for a little bit of empathy or just like a quick like vent session. He's like, let me fix your issue here.
Yeah,
First,
but
let's
Chris
talk
is a
about
man, so I can
deductible.
help him. I don't need to pretend to care and listen. I
Jesus.
could just go right to giving him a good old middle-aged man tip of the week of argue with the hospital and
Hey,
doctors and ask
middle-aged man.
politely to help.
Yeah,
You
that's
ever gotten to a
true.
segment that fast? That was a new record.
I try to do that usually, and they're usually like apologetic, but eventually they'll put me on like an interest-free payment plan. What's kind of like funny about this one is that like I'm just finishing up an interest-free payment plan from 2 years ago. So I was like, no way, at the end of October, I'm gonna have no more monthly medical payments, and then slam, fractured hand. Like,
No, no more monthly medical payments. Let me celebrate by opening my door.
yeah, exactly. I was like really looking forward to this day. I was like, oh, I'm not gonna have those 99.99 deducted from my HSA every month by Mount Sinai. And then like the second Mount Sinai is like, wait a minute, this guy's about to be off the hook. I feel like it sent some like psychic energy to ensure I got injured again.
And Jay, how's your medical update?
I gotta go see the doctor right after this call, pretty much. And then I had to go get some more x-rays done. Uh, she's worried that there's a small percent chance that there's like a really bad fracture that like if like a it'd be small fracture, but then if it went untreated, like the
Mhm.
results would be bad, like blood flow stops going to the foot.
Jesus.
So requires surgery, but she's like looking at the MRI scan and she's like, I'm 90% sure that's not what's going on, but I think being 100% sure would be better. So I went and got more x-rays done, couple days ago on Tuesday, and then today I'll be back and get her final kind of assessment over everything. But yeah, man, the traveling back and forth is annoying. Like we're talking about
Yeah,
time sucks and like I just don't like action items. You know, I have a issue with like any kind of productivity in my life. So like having this
yeah.
extra project of like constantly getting x-rays and then going back to the doc, like just going back and forth has been like just very annoying. But I'm in a pretty complaining mood. So if you poke me too much and just hear 10,000 complaints.
No, it's true though. Like, because when you go to the doctor, you have to like schlep all over the place, and then you have to come back, and it's always on their schedule, and it
Yeah.
makes you feel like really like I don't know, disempowered or something. Because you would go to the doctor, like you're seeking a service, and you're paying for the service, quite handsomely, I might add, and yet like you're treated just like some fucking schmuck who like is just fortunate enough to even have the privilege of being allowed in the building. Like that's what always gets me about medical care. Like for the amount of money you're paying there's like it's not like a positive experience. It's
Yeah,
usually just
you should be like getting a
the bus
VIP
station.
treatment.
Yeah.
For the prices they charge, you should be getting like a total VIP experience.
Here's what's ironic to me. I'm the only one here on Medicaid, and I get a great treatment every time, and my doctor's like a block away, and it's NYU or whatever, and they get me in and out. They're functional. I mean, sure, I've been going to the doctor for 2 years for my leg that no one can give me a full diagnosis on, and no one's actually resolved it. But every time I show up, it's quick. They're with me right away. The
Yeah.
X-rays, I don't see any bills. Everything's good except no one's fixed it.
It's a feel-good experience other than the feeling of the actual injury. Well, I've
But
applied
I,
for
I will say
Medicaid
that's
in this office.
possibly the only good thing of living in New York City at this point is every medical thing is in a 2 block walk of me. So I just show up 2 minutes before I'm supposed to, and almost no one's kept me waiting more than like 10 minutes past the schedule.
That's good.
But the other trick is if you do it early in the morning, then they don't get backed up. Whereas
Yeah.
if you're the schmuck that schedules a 4 o'clock, guess what? It's a 6:30, and that's your second middle-aged man tip of the week.
Keep them coming.
No, that's true. I go to the Mount Sinai like internal for my just like regular doctor stuff. And that's actually a good experience because it's like very much not it's like the Port Authority in there. Like old ass tile floors, fluorescent lighting, like hard seats, like super uncomfortable. But they're just like appreciative of like I don't know what it's about, but every time I go there, I'm in within like 5 minutes. Like I'm really feel taken care of. I 30 minutes like he'll give me to like ask him questions, but they're like residents. They're not like established doctors that you see at the internal clinic. So they're like really new to like the whole profession and they seem like more engaged. Like they're not just like old jaded assholes who are like, fuck this guy. Like I gotta go sport fishing on my 40-foot yacht after work. It's more like kids that are like, yeah, like I'm overpaying for an apartment. Like I'm in a hell of medical school debt. But it's kind of nice just to like talk to somebody who's like somewhat knowledgeable about their own health for like 20 minutes and they'll like give you your time. Like that's like the one little trick I've found is like sometimes if you go to like some of those big clinics, you actually get good treatment because like the kids are young and eager and not jaded and B like they kind of just like seeing people who they can just kind of chat with after like seeing a ton of people all day who like
See, my doctor's an old jaded asshole, but I like him because he's like
good.
an asshole about the whole system. He's
Oh,
jaded
that's nice.
about that.
Yeah.
Where like someone recommended some pill, but I guess it's also an antidepressant, but it's supposed to help with like stomach and leg nerve issues. And he's
Yeah.
like, it'll help you for 2 weeks, and then you'll be addicted to this shit the rest of your life. Don't bother.
Yeah.
So but he's like, yeah, I'm going back to Connecticut and doing my woodworking and getting on my yacht. But then he'll hang out and chat with me for like an hour because he's like, I don't want to see patients. What else you got?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's good. It's like it's so dependent on like the provider sometimes, on like who you see. Like you can have all sorts of like horrible experiences and then like have a good one. It's hard to like make generalizations.
And again, the where I go, it's a brand new building, medical building. Eliana is with Northwell, I think. She's also, they got brand new offices. So our area might be terrible otherwise and have homeless people sleeping under the bridge right next to us, but at least we have brand new medical facilities for when they get off their meds and attack.
Oh man, I was at a local city, like a local community meeting last night, kind of talking about the Adams rezoning. Because Eric Adams is doing this big rezoning plan. It's called the
You
City
mean
of Yes.
resigning because he got indicted, or there's also a rezoning?
There's a whole big rezoning, and in the middle of the rezoning meeting, like they announced that he was indicted, and everyone started cheering and like like high-fiving each other. It was like a really fun moment.
For Jay May Adams is the mayor of New York.
Yeah, the mayor of Newark, everybody hates him. Like everybody. Like it doesn't matter where you are politically, like everybody hates Eric Adams. I've never seen something like this
Now,
where
de Blasio, they hated just as much.
I don't think so. I like de Blasio. De Blasio still has his supporters.
Not
Universal
by the
pre-K was a
end.
great thing.
By the end, everyone hated him too.
But I think Adams is like uniquely despised because like on one day he'll be like, okay, real estate industry, like yeah, you can totally define affordable apartments as like anything but anything under $4,000 a month. And then in that afternoon, they'll like some cop will shoot some innocent dude on the train who was just like, leave me alone. And then he'll be like, yeah, these cops are like so brave and they took such heroic actions to shoot a guy who didn't pay 290 for the train.
I think I read about
They
that one.
he's a total piece of shit. And he got indicted for taking bribes from
Didn't
from the
that
Turkish
cop
government.
also didn't that cop also shoot like bystanders
Yeah,
in that
and
same
another
area?
cop. He shot
This
That's
is
he
about
shot
called.
another cop and
like
bystanders.
it's about
Where
as
I'm
terrible as he
from,
possibly could have done.
at least where we all went to college in New Jersey, that's just called tying up loose ends.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but it's like really bad. It's like, and then they released the video, and the body cam video directly contradicted like everything the cops said about what happened.
Wait,
So it's
cops
like,
lie? No.
I know, it's just so like, I don't know, it's just so brazen, you know?
People
I
in
think that's
power
what's
abuse their power and the police lie? Oh my God, my worldview is shattered.
it was just so brazen. And
I
then
wonder if AI will detect your sarcasm in the transcription.
Well,
yeah.
Just
ironically, I forgot to start AI until 10
I
seconds
know until
before
just
this.
now. So it's gonna open up and be like, Ben's worldview was shattered when he learned not all cops are honest.
Yeah, hey, AI, sarcasm. Everyone, all power corrupts. Anyone looking for powers, there's a problem with them. And now give me a sitcom. Okay.
Yeah. But I don't but just quickly with the rezoning thing, it's like this weird coalition of like just old white people who just like want to keep their single family homes and not have any apartment buildings in the neighborhood. And then like leftists who are like, hey, like this is just a blank check to the real estate development industry to like raise like some of the only middle class single family homes in the city and build enormous luxury apartment buildings where the rent is going to be more than like people's existing mortgages for these houses. Like it's just a blank check to real estate. And the argument is always like we have a housing crisis. But the truth is, there is a housing surplus right now, and there's 150,000 units in the pipeline. The problem is that they're not affordable. There's like an affordability crisis. 600,000 people in the city died of COVID. Like there's been a lot of vacancy increases. It's just that landlords hoard the apartments for tax breaks, or when apartments are available, they're charging above or at market rates, so nobody can afford them. But they're like, just build more, just build more, just build more, but it's not changing anything because like it's not actually bringing prices down.
At a certain point, it has to bring prices down, doesn't it?
No, because the tax incentives for hoarding apartments that real estate interests can hold are surpass that than bringing the price of the apartments down. Because if they devalue their assets, it like changes a lot of stuff with their insurance and yada yada yada. So it's better to have their assets valued at a certain level, whereas bringing prices down would devalue the assets.
Wouldn't devaluing assets make their insurance cheaper?
No, I don't know exactly like the mechanics of this, but there's like a lot of case studies and how like there's been increases in the number of apartments. Like even just in the past year, or next year is going to be 150,000 more. and there's a higher vacancy rate. But I don't know all like the specific ins and outs of the zoning law, but there's the prices like are remaining like stable or going up because a lot of the new apartments that are being built also causes other people to sell or other people to make their apartments available at the rates that the new luxury apartments are being set at. So it's like a new place goes up, right? A new building, and they're like, we're going to charge $3,500 for two bed, and it's a nice luxury place. And say there are a bunch of two beds around it for like 2,000 bucks. Now they're like, hey, the new apartments are now being on the market for 35. We're going to raise it from 2,000 to like 2,600, 2,700, because it's not as nice. But here's like a new baseline for what the apartments in the area will be at. Like when Jessica and I were looking for a place, like there were tons of apartments available. We just like couldn't afford any of them, you know? That's why we ended up moving up here. 'Cause it's like we can get a house for $3,500 a month mortgage, or we can get like a shitty two-bedroom apartment for $3,500 a month.
Yeah, I mean, our upstairs neighbors moved out, and our landlord's look unlikely to sell, and anything we've looked at is like 1 to 2 grand more for the same type, if not worse.
Yeah, it's a lot. And like what they define as affordable housing is crazy. They're like in East New York, which is like it's like Compton or something in LA. It's like a really depressed area. Um, they're like it's an affordable like what they define as affordable is it's affordable for a family of four making 150 140K a year when it's like most people in East New York make like 45K a
Oh
year.
yeah, we get all the housing lottery emails, and
Yeah.
especially Long Island City, and they call it low income housing. They don't even call it affordable housing. It says low income housing, and then the salary range for three people is like 140 to 180 a year.
Yeah,
And,
exactly.
and then the funniest, even although that's preposterous on its own, and then it's like, okay, if you only make 140 to 180 a year, then your two-bedroom apartment will only be 3,800 a month.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like the go fuck yourself economy, you know? Like it's
So
the
that could be the write that down as
Oh,
the
I
episode.
was going to.
Although I guess now we're having like multiple titles with fuck in a row. That's like our new thing. But that is pretty funny. The go fuck yourself economy. I do feel like we're living in it. I feel like everything is expensive now. My main thing is going out to eat or trying to get a meal. It's like I'll look for something cheap. And there is nothing. There's nothing.
yeah.
I even like I got Taco Bell the other day, thinking like, okay, this has to be, and like, granted, it was significantly cheaper than a lot of other options, but it was still like 15 bucks for like not a huge meal.
Yeah.
Um, which is like back in the day, it'd been like $2 or something like insanely low. Yeah, it's everything's expensive now. Like everything you do is expensive now.
Yeah. But you're right about the fast food thing. I'm like a big Taco Bell fan. I like the black bean chalupas. They're like $8 each, you
Yeah,
know?
that's I got two items at about $8 each. And it's like, well, it's look, any other meal would have cost me over 20 in LA. And I guess 16 is percentage wise decently cheaper, but it's like still 16 bucks for Taco Bell. And it's not like I
Yeah.
ordered 10 things, I ordered two things.
Yeah, at that point, you might as well go to Chipotle for this better quality.
Yeah, so I mean, the go fuck yourself economy is real.
The
That's
go
all I'm
fuck
saying.
yourself economy. Yeah.
Could probably write a whole book on the go fuck yourself economy.
It's just every page is just us complaining about how expensive things are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
I mean,
just
I'm
like,
at the point, it's like if you could get a $10 wrap, that's a miracle.
Yeah,
Usually
$10.
even 12, you're like, all right, I guess. So it's like what pisses me off the most, and this will be a bougie complaint, is you have like a mediocre meal and it still costs you $60 for two people, no
it's true.
alcohol.
Yeah,
At
it's true.
which point I'm like, I would much rather have a $90 meal that I enjoy than this awful $60. How the hell did this cost 60?
Yeah. Yeah. Everything's expensive.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough too because it's like you can either it's also like the grocery prices I've noticed like have been coming down a little bit, but like the prepared food stuff is like still so expensive. I remember like years ago, like you'd go out to eat and like $60 was like a nice fucking meal. Like you go out for 60, it's like four drinks, three courses, like just it's like nice ambiance. And now 60 is like I'm ordering pizza and it's like $60 for takeout. Yeah, it's like
Yeah,
a salad, a couple drinks, some knots, forget it.
dude, forget it. No, for sure. The price of pizza's gone up outrageously. Well, in brighter news, you both had birthdays.
Yeah.
Any fun, positive, exciting birthday moments or stories, or do you feel deeply wiser now that you're a day older and that number changed? Yeah, birthday check-in segment happens, once every couple of years.
That's true. I think for me, it's like it's the big 4-0, right? And I don't know. I got really bummed out. Like I thought I was prepared for it. I really did. I was like turning 40. I see myself as older. I see like myself in a different like age cohort or like a different milieu. I see, I feel like a little older. I do like I'm trying to like embrace it, right?
Mhm.
But then the day it happened, it's like I'm 40, but a lot of the things that I was doing when I was 25, like, all right, I got this job. I'm just gonna do it for like a few years, or like, or like you think about the things that you projected for yourself when you were younger, and you're just like, man, I didn't do any of those things, and I'm still in the same job. Like, it's like a lot of that. It's like reflecting on what you thought you'd change by 40, and then like you didn't, and like that's really been dragging me down a little bit.
And you took it out on the company survey pretty hard.
Oh man, I smashed my company survey. It was just all of these questions. It's like, do you have a best friend at work? Do you feel mentored? Do you feel developed? And it's like, no, 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 and no.
In
And then
what
they're like,
fantasy land did they write those
yeah.
questions?
And then they add this thing where it's like, what could we change to make you feel more engaged? And now in our work, we have all of these like, it used to be we just email like, say you need something from Steve, right? You just be like, hey, Steve, like I need this fucking thing.
Grasshopper? Sorry.
Yeah. Hey Steve, I need a drink, or hey Steve, I need this, I need the da 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 da, I need the grasshopper recipe for my new cocktail. Like you just email them, right? Be like, hey, what this thing? I need it. Hey, how's it going? How are the kids? Kind of like a nice little like interaction. And now it's like you gotta file a ticket in Jira, and then you gotta poke them in this like other thing, and then you need to close the ticket and don't forget to like assign a date and then assign points for how hard it is, and then like clear it with their manager by adding them, and then add it to the Gantt chart. And it's like, what the fuck even is this shit? Like I'm just trying to ask Steve for a goddamn like grasshopper recipe, and now I'm in like 15 different systems that's supposed to make this easier, but it's just
Sure.
making my life a living hell. So I was like, hey, company, you can increase my engagement by like not making the simplest shit hard as fuck and calling it progress. You
Mhm.
know?
Yeah,
If you It's
I
like you
get
can't even just like have a friendly little chat like, "Hey man, like you get me this thing. Hey, like did you go to that concert yesterday?" Now it's like, "Oh, did you like?" Now it's like, "Oh no, there's an automated email from the Kanban board." Still don't even know what the fuck a Kanban board is, but everyone like talks like that's the thing now. Like everyone's like using these words, and I'm just like, I don't even know what the fuck you're talking about. Like, what's a Gantt chart? What's a Kanban board? Like, what is Jira? Like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, it just feels really like alienating. It's like
Now,
it
see,
creates
Ben, I
distance.
know all the answers to those questions, but I'm also wise enough to know that Chris is not looking for the answers to those questions.
Yeah.
He's simply looking for a little bit of empathy and understanding. Just a tip, just a
Well,
pro
this is what I agree where I wasn't going to give him the answers. I
tip.
can tell the difference between a good rant and a I wonder how I'm going to be screwed. Hey, here's how you can be screwed less.
Yeah.
I know a Gantt chart. I don't know the rest of those things. The joke I wrote that isn't a joke that relates to Chris and probably Jay and definitely my condition is I'm too young to give up, but I'm too old to still have hope. That's why
Mm,
it's called middle age.
There you go.
mm.
Oh, I'm not gonna get rich. I'm not gonna die trying.
Yeah, it's a little too real for me to laugh at, but get
It's
the
real.
premise. Um, and any birthday wisdom from you, Ben? Now that Chris shared that delightful, uplifting birthday story.
I'm at the same age as Chris. I was not looking forward to my birthday day. I never do this round numbers, especially so, especially I wanted to record an album around my birthday. That didn't work out. I thought maybe I'll throw myself a birthday roast. That didn't work out. But then the actual day was pleasant enough and fine. It helped that my kid was excited. She wanted to give me a gift in the morning, and then went to lunch with her and Michelle and some family and a
Oh,
couple
Well,
of
what did
friends.
she get you for your birthday?
that's nice.
I will because we are a visual podcast.
Yes, we are.
I will
That's right.
show you what she was excited to give me from the Five Below store.
Yeah, they're pretty
Oh,
cool. You look like you're ready to
those
go
look pretty
skiing.
slick.
They're futuristic sunglasses that I think have some sort of reflective outside proper where you
Yeah,
can't see the eyes.
that's good. Yeah, they're nice.
Yeah, those are cool.
It's thoughtful.
They look like kind of like old school Oakleys, but like, updated, little more rectangular. Like
Yeah,
those
and
typical
also
Oakley blades.
like totally fake. And the guy who sold them to you, like,
Oh,
was,
they're the Five Below store where everything is
no,
five
I know. I was
dollars
saying it'd be
less.
funny if they were, you know, those are like the Folkleys.
So anyway, my actual day was quite nice. We had some fun text and video we sent around to each other. So I was like, fine. And then I woke up the next morning and there's a voice in my head is, you're now 40. You're 40. Or it was like, I'm 40. Fuck, I'm 40. Fuck, I'm 40. So then yesterday I was in a similar mood to Chris, but I delayed
Yeah,
it for a day. But that might just be because we're 40 and there's a refractory period now.
that's true.
Well, I didn't realize that I was 8 months older than you guys, which I feel like is significant. I mean, especially if you think back to like the college years, because we were only 18 or whatever. So it was almost like 1/18th older than you guys, or something close to that.
5%
Yeah,
would be the
yeah. So
simpler
I've
math, but
been,
yes.
yeah, 5%. So I've been 40 for a little while. So I can relate to the feeling of what it was like when it, the flips over and it's a decade, so it's a zero at the end, and it's a whole feeling. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations on making it this far, guys. We're still in the game. We're still out there. We're still kicking.
Still getting our podcast to blow up.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. But here's the other thing I'll say, and then we'll move on to something less depressing. Two things. One, my mom's brother emailed me that in some cultures you're not considered fully human until 40 because that's when you like own yourself. Whereas
Oh,
before,
interesting.
your childhood influenced you, whatever, you're still responsive. Or like at 40, whatever your reactions are, that's just you.
It's just
Now you're a full-blown human being, and it is what it is. And then the second, related as I say it, but it was coming from two different places. I feel it's like where this is the age where you know what you're good at, you accept your limits, and you just kind of are how you are, and just try to focus on the things you're good at.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. I think we're definitely at a point where it's like you can't blame like you can't like attribute all issues to like childhood anymore. It's like, okay, like you've had time to kind of process things, you've had time to kind of like work on yourself. And if you haven't, like there's still like an opportunity, but it's yeah, we're now in a place where it's like we kind of have to look forward towards like how we're going to resolve things. It's not like when we're in, when we're like in our 30s and stuff, and it's still like the residue of like being a kid, or still like the residue of like being like in college that like is kind of clinging to us. There's like a little bit of a more, um,
We are residueless.
yeah,
Now here's a fun I'm gonna pretend it's a dating issue of the week, but it's barely. So okay, picture all of the knowledge in the world, right? Everything everyone knows about everything. Of all that knowledge, what percent would you say you know?
A fraction of a percent.
But
yeah,
Like a
but give a
yeah,
ridiculous
give
small.
so like
I
what
don't know, point and then like a number of zeros in a row that are
okay.
comical and one.
Yeah, sure. Like 0.008. That's what I'm
Okay,
gonna go with.
so Michelle asked me this question, and I was trying to be humble. I was like, I don't know, 20%, and she thought I was a
Yeah.
crazy person.
20% of the information in the world?
Yeah, yeah, I think that's about right. I don't know 80% of stuff, and I know a little bit about most things.
I get we might be interpreting the question
Yeah,
different.
because I'm thinking of like what's, you know, like trying to think of like what's like some random Burmese guy's birthday, you know? It's like that's part of the information of the world. Like there's like a lot of stuff like that where like there's a billions of people that I just know
No,
don't
I
even
I
know
viewed it as
exist.
like anything that might be asked in some sort of way that is reasonable for most people to know.
Oh,
I
well,
kind of viewed it that way,
the
or like a
wording is very
subset of
different.
people. Like, fine, I don't know when the Burmese election is, and there's a million Burmese people, so it's reasonable to know because a million people know that answer. But random Burmese man, that's not
Sure, but okay, but
celebrity.
then take every country in the world and take the question, when is their election? Do you know 20% of
No,
the
that would be
election
the
dates?
0.001 thing.
But then that wasn't a random Burmese man's name. That was a legitimate thing that
Right.
millions of people
Yeah.
knew. So it's like that's just the election example. We could go with, you could keep doing that over and over.
Maybe I just interpreted it as given what an average American can know about. I don't know. I didn't think
You
I was
have to
that crazy. I
word the
didn't think I was
question more
insanely
subtly.
confident. Michelle thought I was a crazy person. The two of you agree. I'm not. I
I
can
mean, look,
see.
you're interpreting the question differently. If the question is something like the average person's intelligence knows X%, what do you think you like? If you figure out a way to word it differently, maybe
I
it
just
makes
kind of interpreted it like if it was like explain mitosis, I'd get it like 20% right.
all right, explain mitosis. I want to hear this one.
It's how cells divide, and there's the mitochondria has the energy, and then stuff happens, and there's like a bunch of processes, and then they divide, and that's how you grow. That's like
Do you
20% of
really
the
think
answer.
that's 20% of it? Like if
Yes.
we found an
Point
expert
zero
level
zero.
scientist that understood mitosis to like a crazy scientific degree, do you think that you just hit 20% of his points?
I mean,
Like if you
I'm
get a
sure.
test, like a high school mitosis biology test, I think Ben, like, are you, a 20 might be a
I'll tell
push.
you what, Ben, there are exactly 5 phases of mitosis. Name one of them, and that's at least 20% of the phase names.
I'm gonna go. Mitosis is one of the five phases of
Not.
mitosis.
It's not.
I'm,
Prophase, metaphase, anaphase, telophase, and cytokinesis would have been your 5 choices. So you know less than 20% of the 5 main phases of just the name. Now, if I asked you to describe each of those 5 phases, how many do you think you'd get right?
Well, telekinesis is when they move and are
No,
separate.
no, no, none of
So
them were
one out of five.
telekinesis. None of them, no, none of them were telekinesis. That wasn't one of the choices.
The last one, something kinesis.
cytokinesis.
Yeah.
Cyto or Kaido, I don't even know how to say it. Cytokinesis. And what were you saying it is?
I was saying that that's when they fully separate because kinesis is movement and they become two separate ones. So one
Fair
out
enough.
of five.
Also, as the last phase, um, you could have some context there. So yeah, okay. So 20, what you know roughly 20% of all knowledge that man has. I'm convinced.
Oh,
I'm
Michelle's
convinced.
big, she read it in some
Got me on
self-help
the you
book.
got me on that one.
I guess most people say your answers of 0.001% of the knowledge, because
Yeah,
then the self-help book's follow-up was, okay, so you know that, but you're certain that your opinion of yourself, your negative opinion yourself of your, but you're certain that your negative opinion of yourself is true, even though
right,
you know 0.001. So,
right.
so
Well,
I'm going to ask a few more people to see if I'm insanely overconfident or if there's some other explanation.
make sure they know what anaphase is before you take them seriously.
Yeah, that's a good question though. Like if we went back to high school and got some of the same tests, like we're getting like we're failing everything, aren't we?
I mean, yeah, I
If
failed
it's multiple
all of my
choice, I
time.
would get like a D minus.
What percentage of the capitals of the world do you both think you know? Like
Uh, I'm going
countries,
20%. I'm
Yeah, I was gonna go
20%ing.
similar.
cities. Yeah.
Yeah, if you give me a country, I will get 20% of the cities right. I think continent-wise, like Europe, I would get 70%, Africa 10%.
Exactly, that's what I was gonna say. Yeah, it's gonna be very dependent on continent and stuff.
North America 100%. Or no, probably not 100% because I'm not sure which one the capital of Canada is. But Mexico
Ottawa.
City and Washington, D.C., I have good confidence in.
Okay,
It's not Toronto, is
it's
it?
Ottawa. I'm pretty sure it's
I don't,
Ottawa.
it's not Montreal. I know of that.
Oh God, no, they would never be the capital of the country. They wouldn't be their own country.
Right, right.
Okay, let's go. I don't even know. I'm looking at the list and I don't even know. I'm so bad at it. I don't even know which ones are the countries and which ones are the capitals. That's the situation that I'm in as you two go into this test. Okay, I think the country is Bhutan. You got to
Next.
I'm
them
gonna,
off,
I'm gonna,
guys. You got to know them.
You're just picking the difficult ones,
I,
Jay.
I just
it's
Googled a list and I
alphabetical
picked the
almost.
first one on the list. I did not search for a difficult one. By
How
the
is
way, I don't know
America
what
wait, wait,
80%
wait.
of these.
Hold on. How is America or Argentina not first on the list if it's alphabetical?
Not, I didn't say it was alphabetical. I just said I pulled up a list and read the first one on the list. It's not alphabetized. You don't know Bhutan.
No,
Yeah, I don't know.
pass.
Bhutan. I'm gonna say like Timbuktu, but I think that's Nepal.
Eswatini,
Next.
Kiribati,
Y-
Burundi. You just stop when you know one. Malawi, Tuvalu, Benin, Suriname.
These aren't countries, Jay.
No,
You're reading
Suriname.
a
It's
Chinese food menu.
God, Suriname. Is it Guyana?
That's offensive because I think they are countries.
Yeah, they're
What
totally
was your
countries.
guess? Yeah, it was
Suriname, isn't it?
Paramaribo.
Yeah,
Okay, so I think the point is you guys don't know 20% of them. You're vastly overconfident in you're thinking countries, you're like, yeah, there's three, right? America, Europe, like it's like, well, Europe's not a country. Anyway, point is I'm worse at geography than both of you, but you're both overconfident.
Well, it's a version of how 90% of drivers think they're in the top half of drivers, right? It's one of those.
What should we move? Should we move on to physics next? Like we can keep playing this game. It's not gonna get any
yeah.
better as we dance between subjects. It's like none of us are experts in physics. None of us, I mean, maybe
Now,
Chris is.
I don't remember if we
Oh.
covered this conspiracy already, but someone brought it up to me this week, and we were already texting about conspiracies anyway. So uh, he was saying that the moon landing was fake, or at least it was faked of when it happened. Perhaps we've been to the moon since. And the thing I
Yeah,
didn't
what I thought.
realize, and we might have discussed this already, but it didn't click in my long-term memory, maybe because we're middle-aged. I thought like, yeah, we landed on the moon and we go back to the moon and check it out all the time. Like some sort of science, but no, but we haven't, nobody has walked
No,
on the moon since 1973,
the
which
70s.
seems
Yeah,
insane.
yeah. We abandoned it. We
It's
abandoned
it's
like
it's a
the
matter of
shuttle program.
motivation. It's a matter of like why would they, right? Like we had to defeat the evil Russians the first time,
Or that's
and
what they
so
want you to think, because there was both who's going to get nuclear weapons on the moon first, and then nobody talks about the moon anymore. So what did they see up there?
Yeah.
Or maybe they never got there. I don't know, but I, I just thought we like occasionally walk on the moon to walk on the moon still.
just for the lulz. But
All
it's
that funding's gone elsewhere. That's all gone to like military, to like anti-terror. Like that's the thing. Like NASA doesn't have nearly the funding that it did back then, because it doesn't have the symbolic value any longer.
yeah.
But
But like I know that like China is trying to get like a manned space mission to the moon, and like so is India. But now we don't even like fly our own space shuttles anymore. We just contract that shit out to like SpaceX or what other billionaire space companies exist. Like we don't
and
even launch our own satellites.
well, I
I
mean,
think SpaceX does in Brazil.
It's because NASA probably has the same system that Chris has at his work, where you have to requisition the space age material through some process and da 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 da. Where, and I could be completely wrong about this part, but I think I read when they like made the spending what they spent to get to the moon in today's dollars, it was like 5% of NASA's current budget. So
Yeah.
it's all this bureaucratic waste and bullshit.
There's a lot of money, and I think a lot of it isn't necessarily bureaucrat waste, but it's just the expense that the amount of money we just shovel to contractors and like all of these like kind of contracting things, where like the government like no longer has the same responsibilities in-house, so we have to have all these expensive contracts with like independent parties to do most of the work. Like most of the work the government does is actually contracted out because everyone's like, oh, like private sector can do things more efficiently. It's like maybe, but they also charge us like way more than it would be to just have it all like under our own banner and in like a nationalized setup. Like I know my cousin's husband, he does like some cybersecurity shit for like the military, but like he's not like in the military. He's like a contractor, and he gets paid like dump trucks full of money to like get up at 11 and like drink a beer and like apparently like send 3 emails. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know.
Well, that's because his value is in probably maintaining that $100 million contract, so he gets his 0.05% cut. That's still 500K or whatever
There
it
you
is.
go. Yeah. Yeah. The contracting business. Or like Edward Snowden. Like we have all of these folks who had like intricate insider knowledge of like the way the NSA or other intelligence agencies worked, and then took the documents to show us, like which they, I mean, should have done, frankly. Like that's transparency. That's important. But these are all contractors. Like Snowden worked for Booz Allen Hamilton. He was just some like schmuck that like got hired into a private company that got access to the systems.
And the other thing with the moon landing is because it was a space race, if all you care about is winning, it would make total sense to Hollywood soundstage it.
Yeah.
If that gets to one, get the win, and two, then the Russians stop doing their space stuff.
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah, I'm totally into this moon conspiracy.
Is
I
this,
think
by the way, is this the first time you've heard about the moon conspiracy? Or
No,
you?
I've heard it, but I
Oh,
before when I heard it, I'm like, you. So before COVID, I used to think conspiracy theories were all bullshit, but then watching how mass media lies to us in real time, now I'm like into I'm like, it could have all been a conspiracy, sure.
yeah, I kind
Especially
of bought
especially
into
back in
it.
the 60s and
sure.
70s when the governments really fully controlled mass communication. It was must have been so easy to get people to believe anything.
All the moon landing stuff has been pretty heavily refuted by independent experts and debunked scientifically. So
Yeah.
I think the more you look into it, the more you might decide that it wasn't. It's even one of the rare conspiracies where I actually have heard about people who like believe it for a while and then at some point no longer believe it, which is pretty rare. I think with most conspiracies, once someone believes it, they're like they get pretty dug in
Yeah.
for like a
So,
lifer.
you mean the conspiracy was debunked, or landing on the moon was debunked? Not.
The conspiracy. So there's a lot of people who believe the moon landing was fake. It's a fairly common. It's one of the biggest conspiracy theories, I think, of all time. If we were to rank them, it's one of the most common ones I've
Yeah,
heard about
that's
in my
true.
life. Up there with
Sure.
like JFK and like moon landing. There's only a few.
I mean,
Like it's top
the top
five.
three is JFK, moon landing, and 9/11 inside job, right?
Yeah, those are probably a pretty safe top three. If we're missing two big ones, we can say they're safely the top five. But yeah, with that one, like Joe Rogan, I guess is the most famous example. Like he was a pretty um, big proponent that it was faked, and then at some point he's like, it's not fake. I realize I've seen all the evidence. Like, so it's one of the rare ones where I think people can be acknowledged.
Yeah.
You
I
can kind of
remember
get to the other side of it.
I remember seeing like a documentary when I was like much younger on like TV, like midnight on the History Channel kind of shit, I think, or like something like that, where it was like the moon landing was fake. And I remember one of the big pieces of evidence they cited was the flag that they planted, because it looks like it's like blowing in the wind or whatever, like it's up, and they're like, actually in space, like there's no wind or something, like there's no way the flag could actually be positioned like that. And
Yeah,
this was like one of their like cornerstone pieces of
yeah,
evidence
yeah. I
in the
remember.
documentary. And then it's like, no, they had a fucking another pole. It was like it was like a T like a rafter square where it was like a
Holding it.
line and then a line. So it actually was structurally like that to hold it up to look in that manner. And it's like, man, if they're like cornerstone evidence is so easily debunked, it seems a little speechless.
Yeah.
And also, if you have a big telescope, you can actually see people's like footprints and like the moon rovers like tire
Yeah,
tracks and stuff.
there's scientific evidence, yeah.
The one my guy mentioned is it wasn't a live feed to the moon. It was just a media person at NASA videoing a NASA TV screen and
Yeah.
shooting that as the live feed.
Let me ask you this, Ben. Do you think, let's just say hypothetically it was faked. Wouldn't the Soviet Union have exposed that? I don't even think they ever tried, to my knowledge. There was never an attempt where the Soviet Union was like, it's fake and this is why. Wouldn't they have, if we faked our win, don't you think they would have responded and been like, they faked their win, here's the proof? Like, why didn't the Soviet Union ever prove that it was faked or even attempt?
How would they respond when all the mass media is under control?
Well, I mean, their media. I'm not talking about our media. Or you're
Yeah.
saying they responded, but it didn't get to me?
Possibly. I don't know. I've done no research on this, but someone brought up 3 or 4 facts. I'm like, this will be good for the podcast.
Yeah, no, it is.
Yeah.
And that's why we're doing it. Yeah, I mean, it is good for the podcast. If we were going to do conspiracy theories, this is an inevitable conversation that would come up. But yeah, I think the Soviet Union, being a pretty big rival of ours, would have had quite the incentive to expose the hoax if one really occurred.
Yeah.
The other thing he mentioned was something about some comet was approaching and the astronauts saw it, but then the comet did some sort of like
That's a new one. I never heard
alien
about
I haven't heard this
spaceship
one either.
turn. So,
No.
so perhaps whatever.
alien U-turn comet theory.
Yeah, there is a big word for it. I'd have to look it up again. But so apparently, like maybe you can't even approach the moon or magnetic force fields. I don't know. Or they both countries are like let's not talk about this anymore. I don't know.
Yeah,
There's just a lot of unsolved questions that I refuse to Google.
I've I
Remember
already
like
I already looked up this comment, so we're reading about it now. NASA faked the moon landing to distract public knowledge of a comet or some other celestial event that could possibly threaten Earth. In particular, this theory aligns with broader theme of hidden astronomical dangers or cover-ups by government, where NASA and other space agencies supposedly hide information about incoming comets, asteroids, or other celestial bodies that could impact Earth. The idea is the moon landing was staged as a distraction from more urgent space related dangers. They're like, quick, there's this alien comet that's going to destroy us all. But if that was the case, like, I don't know.
I mean, like nothing happened, you know? I
Nothing
feel
happened.
like
Yeah,
the
that's the
fact that
problem.
nothing
They,
happens is
they,
the
they distracted us
reputation.
and then they also discreetly took care of the alien comet.
Unless it destroyed us all and then they rebooted us as a simulation and we don't know the difference except finding this. I would be very good at conspiracy
This
theories
was the
because I
one.
could
This is
keep
the one.
justifying things.
This is the one like glitch in the Matrix. Like they rebooted us and like everyone's clueless unless you look into this one comet thing and then you're like, wait a minute, this really did happen.
And then they find all the comet videos during P. Diddy's sex parties, and that's why he's gonna kill himself.
Hmm.
So we were texting a little bit about conspiracy theories, and I was saying that, I think it's an interesting part of the podcast. I was thinking a lot about what you were just saying, how you, Ben, you were like, I'd be really good at justifying them. So I started thinking about my own relationship to conspiracy theories as well. And I found that interesting to reflect on my own relationship. And it was because of the Epstein case, where like my brain is like, oh, of course he was murdered. Of course it wasn't suicide. And then I was looking up a list of conspiracy theories just to, have ideas for the podcast. And I saw, Epstein being murdered is a conspiracy theory, but it was like right under like Bigfoot. And I'm like, interesting. So like I'm involved in something called a conspiracy theory that's like the equivalent of like, all these other conspiracy theories. Like this is in that bucket. And I started examining what caused me to be hooked into this one. Because the truth is, there is after doing some research, like I would say it's not unplausible that he was murdered, but it's also not unplausible like that he committed suicide.
Yeah.
Whereas I had taken one of those possibilities and been like, no fucking way did he commit suicide. Whereas like, well, no, I mean, it's certainly possible that he did, right? Like there's enough there that the real story, not the conspiracy theory, could also be true. Um,
There's also a third way where someone came in and they were like, "Look, if you keep going the way you're going, you're going to end up in a jail. We're going to torture you there. It's going to be really bad. Or you could do the right thing.
that's what
We're
I
going
mean
to
by
take a
murder.
smoke break for 10 minutes, make your decision,
That's
and
what I
put
mean
in a
by murder.
scarf or
That
whatever."
that 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 would count as murdered in my mind. Like
Yeah.
like something. My conspiracy theory wouldn't be that he was murdered so much as that he was coerced or murdered. Like something shady happened that wasn't purely suicide to take him out of the picture.
Yeah.
But anyway, the conclusion that I drew from all of this about my own brain and then like extrapolating forward to others is that a conspiracy theory happens when there's good reasons to hook on to a really good story for your brain. And the narrative is so compelling that you choose to push away other narratives and like pull that narrative towards you. That's what happened to me with the Epstein thing. Is like upon further reflection, sure, maybe he committed suicide. Whereas I would have like was almost positive that he didn't. Now I'm like, there's enough reason for me to have my own doubt. But when there's like certain things to hook on to, like powerful people, shady motive, like lots of money, like these things can hook you in and you start to form a compelling narrative and you get excited about it. So then you want to pull that narrative in further and push other narratives away.
It's also brain scientists, if we're to believe them. They say humans do really poorly with uncertainty. So as soon as possible, they just make up their minds. So instead of being like, yeah, it's 80% likely he was killed and 20% he just did it on his own, we just put it to 100 of course he was murdered.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kiss, hug, beat up. I got a good one for us this week. Edward Snowden, Joe Rogan, and P. Diddy.
Okay.
All right. I'll go. I'll go first. You know what? I know it makes me sad. I'm beating up P. Diddy. I'm just going for it. For foisting like some, yeah, he did like support, Biggie. Yeah, he was like a huge mogul in the 90s and he brought some like really good people up. But P. Diddy himself is also responsible for like a lot of really bad music, a lot of really stupid videos, like an extreme amount of self-importance, like a real like doubling down of like if you're going to be like in hip hop, like you're going to be projecting this like air of like I'm this like successful capitalist executive, which like I found really it got a little tired. Like I understand it and it's fine, and I'm not here to criticize it, but to me it personally just got a little tiresome. And also like the accounts of like his activity are just like, man, you're kind of like a shady asshole. Like you really are. Like you're doing more harm to other people than Joe Rogan, or I genuinely believe like he did more like direct harm as a direct result of his actions than Edward Snowden did or Joe Rogan did. I feel for like Rogan, I'd probably give Rogan I'd probably like I think Rogan's getting the kiss. I'm like, I don't want to spend too much time with you, but you're kind of a fun guy. You have like kind of like a volatility. And I'll be honest, I really liked you in news radio. Like when I think of Joe Rogan, I still think of news radio. Like he was really good on that show, and he was like a really funny character. Like he was very charming. And I know a lot of the podcast stuff gets a little crazy, but he did endorse Bernie at one point. Like that's nothing to forget about. And then for Snowden, like, yeah, like I'm giving Snowden a hug. I think he like really revealed to the American people some like really critical things about the way our government conducts surveillance. And You know, I know like Hillary Clinton and all these like neoliberals were like, well, he endangered CIA agents in the field. It's like newsflash, that's their fucking job to be in danger. That's their entire job description is to put themselves in dangerous situations to protect the national interest. Like them being put more in danger, like I don't think that's actually even a criticism. That's just like the reality of their work. And I think he did a great service to us by like releasing that information.
I agree with you. I have different reasons. Beat up P. Diddy because I've always wanted to get on World Star. And then whatever the kiss or hug, whichever one with Rogan gets me on Rogan to help my career, that's the choice I make. And I think Snowden did the right thing. He should be considered a hero. So whichever one Rogan doesn't want the kiss or the hug, Snowden gets.
All right. I'll beat Rogan up. And you know why? Because he's an amazing fighter. And I
It's
don't know
true.
how I pulled off beating up Joe Rogan, but that's bragging rights for the
It's
rest of my.
true.
So I'm just gonna. Oh, you know what? I think he'd have me on the podcast. I think he may have taken the wrong angle with the kissing and hugging. I don't. I think he'd be like, "Who's this strange comedian trying to kiss and hug me that I don't know?" Whereas if you just came and beat him up and you're like, "Joe, I don't look like I can fight, but I just beat you up pretty bad. You want to have me on the podcast?" I think that might be a better way to get on. So I'm gonna beat Rogan up for sure. Which I'm left with the choice of kissing or hugging Diddy. He's been in the news cycle a lot lately. He seems like he might be a little too into the kiss.
I would
Wait,
advise
yeah.
against kissing for STD purposes.
I'm gonna hug him for
Uh,
safety reasons. And
Fun
that means
side fun side note, I did get once mentioned on the Rogan podcast by Mike Vecchione.
you got mentioned by Mike on Rogan. What did
that's a
Mike?
big deal.
Just as a shout out on the way to some other stuff.
But like what he shouted you out? I mean, what? No,
It's a
tell
big
me more.
deal.
No, it was like a sentence and moved on.
Well, what was the sentence? You must know exactly what was said
I
about you.
didn't. Until a couple of people told me, I didn't listen to it. But then it was something like my Instagram got hacked, and then it got fixed by my good friend, great comedian and tech helper Ben. Also, shout out to
Oh, that's a great shout
more
out.
people.
Oh man, I'm getting my ass chewed out by somebody. I gotta get into another meeting in a second here. Sorry.
Uh, Title this podcast, Final 30 Seconds. I think we know the answer, but I'm going to do a few before. Moonspiracy, vastly overconfident, residue-less, old school Oakleys, or the likely winner, the go fuck yourself economy.
Oh my God.
The go fuck yourself economy. Rusty Shovel Wrecking Crew.